Hi guys, welcome back to my very small obscure channel Velo Fan. Starting the ride here in Downton today, and I did a previous ride at some point where I started in Downton, and I can't remember exactly what the title of that video is, but it wouldn't have been to do with Downton because I was trying to discuss something. I can't remember if I was reviewing something or whatever, but this one will probably be entitled Downton, and then perhaps the next village and the next village and the next village, because I don't have I don't have any topics to talk about today, so I'm just going to be discussing whatever is going through the noggin. So anyway, I did this ride a couple of weeks ago, and it was from Downton. Well, no, actually, where did we start? We started at the Churchill Arms in Alderbury, but we came to Downton, so we did a little bit of roads, came to Downton, and then from there we ended up in a place called Never Wallop, and today the intention is to perhaps go there also, but it was a long ride. It was a lot longer than what I was expecting. I just messaged my mate saying, "You riding today?" To which he replied, "Yeah, I'm down at the Churchill with a bunch of guys." And he said, "Actually, in fact, one of them's your neighbour." But this neighbour, I don't think I've ever held a conversation with him. Not because there's any beef between me and him. We would get on fine on the ride or whatever. It's just that I've never kind of had the reason to I don't know, I suppose, speak with him. But he is on a different road to me, but we are definitely neighbours. So my house is on the corner plot, if you like. Anyway, so yeah, and the first turn I need to take is going to be here, right now, Barford Lane. Now I don't know where I'm going to get to today, and I don't know. I think I'm going to get completely lost. Thanks for opening your door, love. Because when I went on that ride, my mate I knew, but he wasn't leading the ride either. There was another chap leading the ride who I've never met before or since, and he had sat-nav and he knew where he was going. Well, he knew we were getting to Never Wallop, which I'd never even heard of as a place or anything. But it's the purpose of going there was they have an airfield, and you can see planes, and there's a museum as well. Actually, I think it's a military style air museum with all sorts of helicopters and all this and that, but we didn't go to the museum, we just went into the cafe, which was really nice. So like I say, today potentially I'm back to the same place, Never Wallop, right? But the reason I'm doing the ride is because I actually enjoyed these lovely fields and stuff that we went through on the way there. He somehow on his sat-nav deliberately stated he wanted to go on back roads, and that's what we did. And we hit a tiny bit of what I would call main road when we got close to that Never Wallop place. But I'm almost 100% sure I'm not going to be able to get you guys to Never Wallop today. I think because there was a lot of turns that we made on these little tiny back roads, and the chances of me remembering the exact turns is unlikely. And we even actually got lost once whilst he was using the sat-nav, and so we all had to turn in the road, and then it was all a bit of a pain because I can't even remember if we went up. We might have turned there. Did we turn up there? Oh, bloody hell. Like I say, I think probably quite, I don't know, maybe we did come down this hill, but anyway, like I say, the objection isn't necessarily to take you to Never Wallop. I will try and state the towns or villages that I see signposted as I go through them, because if I need to title the video with, I guess obviously the places I've been for interest of people hopefully finding the video to watch it, I know I'm not going to probably see it in detail on the camera, so I'll probably just interrupt whatever I'm talking about and say, oh, we're in Bottomsville or wherever we happen to pass through. But yeah, it was a nice ride, and like I say, that airfield place was cool. And then after we did that, after we chilled out there for a bit, we were like, okay, we could actually go to another airfield, which is over sort of Blandfordy sort of way, Something Abbott, is it? Milton Abbas Airfield? I can't remember any. But Compton Abbas, maybe it's Compton Abbas Airfield. It's a more famous, well, I think it's a more famous one for bikers. I've been there with bikers, and we've had a good peruse of the old planes taken off and whatever, and their tea rooms there, or cafe, whatever you want to call it, is very nice. So yeah, so that was good, but the only problem was it was closed, and I think it might have been Easter Sunday, but it was a Sunday that I was a little bit unsure if the place would be open. But you know, it doesn't matter. You know, we went out for a nice ride that day. I think I remember that place, that Trafalgar Park or whatever, so I think we're in the right ballpark for the first leg of the journey. But like I've said, I'm not remotely expecting to get you to this Never Wallop place. I'm just out for a blast. I wanted to clear my head. We'll get into a little bit of that in a second. Yeah, it was funny. One thing I was going to mention, it was funny because when I met up with this group of riders, like I say, it was a bunch of I'd never met before, and my mate goes to me, yeah, your neighbour says that you should be cutting the grass today, to which I just laughed and I replied, yeah, but I prefer riding motorbikes, you know. And that is the bloody problem with me. I do prefer riding motorbikes. So today I'm actually supposed to be working on my Velocette 1928. It was built, but it's a 29 model KNS 350cc overhead cam, and I'll explain what I'm doing on that. But yeah, I'm supposed to be working on that today, really. But the weather wasn't looking too bad, and you know, we had what was it, March was horrendous, like washout. Just every day nearly was rain. I managed to get out and do quite a few rides actually, but it was terrible weather, and so yeah, seeing today, although the forecast was actually rain for where I live and this area here, but I just think I'll take the gamble because it wasn't raining, even though it's stated as it's raining. And on top of that, looking at the skies, I thought, you know what, it doesn't look that bad. We will risk it, and hopefully I'll stay dry. But yeah, and that's another reason why I'm not at home working on the bike, which is a problem, because that bike's been a project for over 8 years, I think. And a lot of that time, I blamed it on the professional people that were looking after, well, working on the bike, should we say, because they were taking so long. So you know, they had it for 3 years. An engineer chap, I suppose you might, I can't even call him a restorer, but anyway, this engineer matey, and then the spray painter. So between the two of them, they had it for 3 years, which I thought was outrageous because they didn't achieve a great deal. But anyway, and I used to work away from home, and then I managed to get my bike back, just from the point of view of like, they've charged me far too much money. I haven't been able to be in control of it because I've not been present. I've not even been in the UK. So I was checking up on the bike maybe once a year, and I think that's right. Here we go then. Alderbury. Yeah, I think that's what gave them the license to take the piss. I mean, I did say to them I'm not in a particular rush, which is always perhaps a massive mistake. But you know what, I'm not. I just sort of like to, you know, kind and gentle and soft on people that are doing me a service. Other people I'm probably a complete cunt to, but when I'm employing someone, for some reason I seem to be like Mr. Nice Guy, which is a fucking joke, because obviously you're paying them hard-earned cash, and they should be. Oh yes, I remember we went up this little, yeah, we turned right here 100%. I don't like this fucking junction, but we'll have to go for it. It'll be alright. Tunnel Hill. Woman's a bit scared about her dogs, I think. I don't know. Can't really do much about that. I'm on a hill, and yeah, I definitely remember coming up this hill. Nice little church there. Yeah, and so anyway, I got my bike back because, like I say, I was fed up with a few things. And the worst thing is the fact that after having got the bike back, I discovered that all or perhaps almost all of the works. I'm turning left here as well. Again, I remember this junction of the journey. Anyway, and yeah, like I say, all or almost all of the works done by this engineer chap were shoddy as fuck. They were horrendous. And I'm not even an engineer, so I suppose I shouldn't, well, whatever, but I know that I can do a hell of a lot better, and I'm not even an engineer, like I say, and I haven't got any of the machinery, but it's just the fact of attention to detail wasn't there, and you know, a lot of stuff was just no good. So I've been redoing all that, so that's fine, been sorting that out. Right, and I remember I went straight across here, so we are actually kind of like not doing too bad at the moment. I'll let this car go. So it's signposted Farley, East Grimstead. I didn't think that was so close to us. And Pitton. Oh, this guy's letting me go, that's good. Anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah, I've been redoing all Matey's work, like I say, and that's got me up to a certain point, and then I have to deal with the engine. Well, I haven't even completed all the other stuff yet, but I just was looking at the bike the other day, and I just about managed to get it back onto its wheels again, because I'd had to remove the forks and do loads of work that this other prick was supposed to have done and charging money for, obviously wasn't done. Anyway, so yeah, it was like all suspended from the ceiling, and I was just like, oh god, you know. Anyway, so it's back on its wheels. God, that's a bit of a fucking pothole. And so yeah, and I looked at the engine and I thought, right, that's a job I've been neglecting. My mate was round at my house and he said to me, just sell the fucking thing. He was like, look, you've had it a long time, it's cost you an absolute fortune, way more than it's worth currently, and even when it's completely done and restored and, you know, like new, it's still going to be worth less than what you've ploughed into it. So he just said to me, cut your losses, get rid of it. And I was really tempted to sell it as a ongoing project. I was like, yes, I just know that I've not been able to conquer this beast. It was not perhaps just the sheer volume of work. I think it was a combination, and a big percentage of the problem was my approach to the project. I wanted to get it as original as possible, and I was so obsessed with that it made progress really slow, because you're trying to make parts because you can't buy them, and you're trying to source originals if you can, and you're also trying to yeah, I suppose get some reproduction, but I've tried to avoid that. Every part I've got so far has been either an original or something that I've custom made to be as an original. I remember turning up here as well. Shit, I didn't see the road name to give that info for when I'm trying to write up my little ride, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, so that's been a big problem with the project, just trying to be too finicky. I could have probably perhaps made it usable for hardly anything. I could have perhaps put £1,000 into it and stopped at that, but I put in over 8,000, and that doesn't include the purchase price of the bike. That's just, I'm just saying, I put in over 8,000 through trying to get it sorted. And although I've bought all the parts, I've got everything I need, all the magnetos, the correct magnetos being sourced and reconditioned, the correct carb sourced, reconditioned, but I don't just mean changing the jets. I mean, it's literally had a full-on overhaul, replated the works. But anyway, so yeah, so I was very tempted to get rid of it, and in the end I mentioned it to someone else that I don't even know. I would word it like that. I've not met them in person, and at this point I'd probably never spoken to them on the phone, or potentially never spoken to them on the phone, but I speak to them via email, and they're I presume within the Velocette Owners Club. I'm pretty sure they are. And this chap has got a couple of old A-Red cams like mine. They're slightly different to mine, but same principles. He offered to help. He said, right, if you want to do the engine, which the only work I was aiming to do, obviously I couldn't tell until I pulled it apart, shall we say. The only work I was aiming to do is change the barrel and the piston. and the reasons for that were a non-original barrel had been fitted. We think it's a homemade attempt at a barrel, because it's not like the barrels of that era and of that sort of design are cast, and well, you know, I mean, my original one that I've written, Farley, right guys, Farley, if that's how you pronounce it, they're cast, and this one's been machined out of solid. So anyway, and steel, that is, not aluminium, but it's, you know, steel, iron, whatever you call it. Now then, right, ooh, I'm going to go pitting. I'm going to go pitting, even though I can't remember for sure. But like I say, we're going to get there somehow or not. Yeah, so yeah, that was the only work I wanted to do. But you know, and the engine had been rebuilt before I bought the bike. The rest of the bike was hanging, and the engine was rebuilt. That was the value on the bike was based largely on the fact this engine had been rebuilt, and of course I was buying that from a dealer, but they weren't a classic bike dealer, they were a Harley dealer. Oh Christ, what are we doing here then? Oh, I would like to say it could be that one, Church Road, but anyway, I'm going up here. Oh, another biker on his drive. Yeah, so anyway, obviously take the bike apart, then you do end up dealing with more work, but I'm quite pleased. I mean, I think that the engine has been overhauled. When I look at stuff, I'm like, yeah, like I couldn't feel any play on the big end, and the piston and barrel looked to be, they were, the piston was a used piston. It was an original Mark II KSS piston, but the barrel was not. The barrel was, like I say, potentially homemade, but that was in okay condition. The only problem I created for myself, and I don't blame this on the rebuild of whoever previously did it, is the fact that I had taken the spark plug out to have a look down the plug hole. I just wanted to see what kind of piston was inside, because I was trying to source an original piston. I thought, hey, no, never know, they might have fitted one in this barrel that's not correct. Anyway, I then didn't tighten the spark plug back up. I don't know why. I think I'm not quite sure whether I thought to myself that I might over tighten it and knacker the threads, or what the hell was going on in my head, but I didn't. I just put it back in and screwed it in, but didn't really tighten it up. And so anyway, moisture must have got in that way, because, or maybe I just hadn't plugged up the exhaust and the carb inlet at that time for a while or something. But yeah, anyway, rust got in there. So yeah, so that's a bit of a bummer, but that was easily removed. It was like surface, and it was hardly anything, and I just used some very fine Scotch-Brite and it was off. Anyway, but one thing that was troubling me was the fact that on this overhead cam engine you've got bevel gears that drive the overhead cam, and that's what always put me off working on it. I was just a bit scared. I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to deal with this. A little bit technical, shall we say, or perhaps old tech is the better way of putting it. I mean, I've done a couple of engine rebuilds on more modern vehicles, but they were two strokes and they were a lot easier, tiny little engines, 100cc jobbies, you know, thereabouts. Yeah, I remember coming down through here, the Silver Plough. I don't remember what this village is called, that's the only problem. Anyway, so yeah, so anyway, when I opened up I took off this thing, Winter Slow, Salisbury it says. Well, I might even go to Salisbury actually. Yeah, fuck it. I mean, like I say, I know where we turned was, I think, is that turning? Yeah, I think it was that turning back there, but I can't remember. But anyway, I'm just going to keep going and see where I come out. So anyway, yeah, when I'd taken off this tube on the outside of the barrel, which drives, it's a vertical shaft that drives the overhead cam, the distance, the end float, if you like, on my vertical shaft to Oldham's couplings was massive, and I just felt, well, that's not bloody right. And I put it down to the fact that the barrel and piston were not quite correct, and this, that and the other. But anyway, since I put my original barrel and piston on, yeah, what a surprise, got exactly the same bloody gap. So Then I was looking through the spares that came with my KTT, and I was a lucky bugger, I suppose, because in there was one thick and one thin Oldham coupling, and I needed a thick one, so I chucked it in, and yeah, it was good. It sorted out the end float. But since then, with the chap that I'm working sort of with, even though he's not with me, but you know what I mean, he's helping me. Without his help I can't do it, so that's that. Yeah, we've been trying to sort out the bevel gears, but like, you know, we're constantly measuring stuff and eyeing it up and this and that, and so there's a bit of an ongoing issue here, because he wants me to adjust the bevels slightly, because they're supposed to mesh like in perfect height, it's the best way to describe it perhaps, so that the face of the vertical one and the face of the horizontal one, the gear teeth are like exactly at that meeting point. But mine, the bottom bevel, like, it's almost impossible to see, there's fucking stuff in the way, but I think that's good. The top two, they're one of them's half a mil higher than the other, which to me is like nothing, because it means it's a quarter of a mil out. You know, if you bring that one down and bring that one out, it's going to move only quarter of a mil. And I think he would like me to sort it out, which I think is our next step of the game. But of course, that's going to then affect my end float issue, and then I'm like, well, I know I've fitted a thick one to overcome the huge gap I had. If we bring that top bevel down a tad, is that going to then make the end float just a wee bit tight if I go back? And then if I go back to the slim Oldhams, the thin Oldham, then it's probably going to be too big a gap again still. So yeah, anyway, problems are ongoing. La-di-da, that's what I should be doing today. So that's taken up probably far too much of my ride already, because people may not be watching my videos to listen to anything to do with Velocette. Anyhow, right, let's make a decision here, right? What do you reckon? Farley, Pitton, Stockbridge, Andover. I quite like the idea of Stockbridge. But no, we're going this way, and I think this is the way we went, right? Because I seem to remember this Pitton thing, to get to where this, like I say, never walloped, right? But I also saw on that signpost Salisbury, and I'm inclined to go to Salisbury, because we're on our way return leg to the other place we went to, which I think was Compton Abbas Airfield. We did go through Salisbury. I think, again, I mean, right, so I've done that road there, I just can't bloody remember. I remember we did go through Salisbury, and that all worked out okay, so I might just go back through Salisbury, because it'll be a bit of an easier route, no getting lost. Anyway, right, back on topics of conversation. So yeah, obviously I was just highlighting the fact that that's what I should be doing today, but I'm out on my bike, and that's a continual theme in my life. There's things I should be doing with the missus and kids. Could be with them right now. Should be cutting the hedge, doesn't ever get cut. Should be no, let's see what that says. Salisbury City Centre, right? Yeah, I'm going to head for that, I think. Yeah, things I should do, but then I end up getting out on the bike. That is a bit of a thing. Like I say, there's projects within my house that need attention, but like I say, I prefer riding bikes. So there you go, look. If you can see this on the camera, that I'm going to put my money on and say is Salisbury Cathedral, just because the spire is rather high, and although I don't know this area particularly well, I don't think there's any other churches or cathedrals, if that is a cathedral, of that stature, so we're going to go with that being the old Salisbury Cathedral. And like I say, I'm going to sort of slightly follow the signposts here, so we'll probably end up in Salisbury. Bad thing for you guys watching, hang on a sec. Right, it says Salisbury, fucking hell, like that can't be right, seriously, no, that's not right, I'm getting straight over, because that's fucking, I don't know, anyway. Yeah, the bad thing for you guys watching the video is the fact that I'm probably not going to go in the centre of town, Salisbury. I'll probably stick to the outskirts if I can help it, just to avoid getting bogged down in the slow traffic of city centre. Yeah, see, look, this one says Salisbury and it says Southampton, but I ain't getting Southampton today. So that's all good. Yeah, anyway, so that is where I was going with that. But anyway, another topic I want to discuss, because the whole point for me of doing these videos, which may not be the purpose of most people doing moto vlogging, but is engagement. I want to get people engaged in my videos, which is why yak on about this, that and the other. But so the next thing, like I say, obviously you might have some sort of interest in the Velocette stuff, because I have got videos on that up on the old tube, and they will become a focus of my videos in the summer. So I'm still not there yet. For some riding of the KTT, going to be some summer action for me on that bike. I don't bother getting on it unless the weather's okay and stuff like that. I have prepped it though. At the other weekend I did spend my time dealing with that. I had to adjust the clutch, which may not be correct until I ride it, I won't know. So I adjusted the clutch. Like I say, I feel I've adjusted it too much in the direction of slippage, and I think it will slip, but there you go. So yeah, I did that. I drained the oil out of the crankcase because it always goes down there. There's no non-return valve, well I can call it, yeah, non-return valve on a KTT race bike. I drain the oil every ride, but there's still a certain amount I can't. I need perhaps a longer tube for my syringe to suck it out. So yeah, so some does get on down to the bottom, and I just drain that out in preparation for the first bump of the year, only because I've found in the past it can drag on the flywheels really badly, and then my rear wheel just skids and I can't get it to grip. So anyway, did that. Changed the gearbox oil. That's only been in there 2 years, but I'm quite keen to do that every 2 years as opposed to every year, because I don't do enough miles, I feel, to do it every single year. I think that could be wasteful. And when I removed the oil, it was bloody immaculate. It's like this sort of like amazing colour of like brand new oil, which is nice to see. Although the only problem is my oil is just a slight sort of goldeny sort of colour, and the only problem with that is that obviously there's a bronze bush in the gearbox, or there's probably a few of them, and the only problem for me is that if I see nice looking sort of almost golden looking sort of oil, it could actually be signs of wear. But no, it looked fresh. I didn't see any nasties in there. There was loads of I don't know what you want to call it, swarf, whatever, on the drain bolt, and that's because I have a magnetic drain bolt, and yeah, so there was quite a lot of shit on that, but that was good to see, as in I suppose it's caught it, which is good. So anyway, but the one thing that's really annoying on that bike is that to drain the oil I have to remove a subframe, which I sort of think isn't right. I know it's a race bike and there's lots of stuff that's just not like well thought out as such. It's just, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's a fucking right old pain. Like, you've got to like remove this subframe just to get the drain bolt out of the gearbox. I'm just like, you know, and I can't see a way around it really, other than trying to suck out the oil. But then I'm concerned I wouldn't get all of the swarfy stuff out in that attempt. So anyway, just line up where this car is next to me. He's right there. Fair enough. Fuck him. Just gonna blip in front of him to the thing. Yeah, you don't need to be in this lane. Anyway, so yeah, let's move on from that, because I said I just want to go into a slightly different topic. It's still motorbike related, but like I say, I think I've spent too much time on my Velo just because I'm actually finally getting on with it. I think I'm actually, like I say, getting the engine apart, which is quite big for me, and you know, like as in yeah, it's quite mechanically quite a challenge just because of how old it is and this and that. Anyway, so let's move on. Like I said, bloody hell, I'm trying to move on for the last 5 minutes probably. Ducati 916, bang, right, that's the next topic of conversation. So I own one but I've never had it on the road, and yeah, and I just sort of can't afford to own it, so that's a bit of a shame. I do feel a bit bad about that, because I've never had it on the road. So I've literally bought it thinking, yeah, 916 classic, bike of my dreams, first ever Italian bike for me, and excuse me, excuse me. Yeah, so yeah, first ever Italian bike, and the concept with that was if you're going to go Italian, better go Ducati. and there's probably people watching this with a pretty eyes going, oh, what the fuck are you talking about? But no, it was just like, say, I was just a little bit, you know, what's the word, encouraged, or like yeah, sort of G'd up into getting a Ducati from the fact that my mates were buying Ducatis, and some were getting newer bike. Well, they're all newer than the 916, but some were like still I would class as almost classic, and some were like rather modern. Anyway, so yeah, so I was probably a little bit over enthusiastic about Ducatis, and I'd never owned, like I say, Italian, and I was like, right, fuck it. So my mate bought, one of my mates bought a Ducati 1098, and I was eyeing them up, and I think what happened is I mentioned to him about Ducati. He at the time didn't have any Ducatis, and again had never had Italian, and he said to me, oh, I've always liked the 1098, so I don't like anything newer than that, because anything newer than that has all the rider aids, and I want to be just with as much as I can, be as unaided. That's just his ethos. So anyway, so I started looking at 1098s, and I sent him a bunch of links, and the next thing you know, he says to me, oh, because I was discussing one particular bike, and he said to me, oh, well, I've actually asked the dealer to send me a video of the bike, and he said it's not that great because of X, Y and Z, which I thought was interesting, because it meant that he was actually looking to buy, and before that I didn't realise he was looking to buy. I thought he was just talking about the fact that that's the particular Ducati that he likes, you know. So anyway, so he went ahead and bought one. He got one that he wanted, and before he got that, I was still umming and ahhing. And then I just decided to get a 916, which was slightly more money than the 1098, but I felt it had far more classic status, and I was like, do you know what, like, yeah, like, I think if I'm going to choose between the two. And the one thing that was a definite, I remember it being a selling point to me on, well, not really a selling point on the basis of getting a 916, but a thing to put me off getting a 1098, was the fact that the 1098 fuel tank is plastic. And I just thought, my god, that's fucking horrendous. Like, you're buying a Ducati, you're buying a premium Italian branded motorcycle, and they decide to put a fuel tank plastic. I don't know, I just couldn't get my head around it. And that's not really the bare bones of the problem. The problem is that I then read, if you have ethanol, high ethanol fuel in those plastic tanks, they all balloon up and fuck up. So yeah, so that put me off, and yeah, they said, oh, you can buy another tank that's aluminium, because if you buy another Ducati tank from Ducati, it's plastic again, it costs you a fortune, it's very expensive, and obviously if you somehow get the wrong fuel in it again, it's going to mess up again. So you could buy this aluminium tank, and I think it was made in Japan. So then I was a little bit, oh, it's not Ducati, and but it would obviously be quite a nice, in my mind, a nice upgrade, and just keep an original plastic tank in the loft or whatever. But anyway, I just decided, no, that's the deal breaker, I'm going to go for a 916. So then I was on the hunt for one of those, found the one that I bought, took a bit of a gamble on it because I imported it from Northern Ireland. I think it's Northern Ireland, whichever one's part of the UK, so it's not an import, it's never been an import. It was originally sold to that part of Ireland, and it's part of the UK, so it's no problem, because that was my biggest fear, oh, it's going to be an import. No, it's not. Right, so yeah, but it's a bit of a gamble, because I'd never seen the bike in real life, and didn't know if the guy was actually going to even send it to me. I'd sent him the money, so he had all my money, and I bought it on eBay, so I suppose I had a certain amount of comeback, but you still would be probably dealing with a lot of hassle to try and get your money back should that person decide to think, well, fuck it, I'm not going to send it the bike. Anyway, so I took the gamble, got the bike, turned up, the bike's mint, right, no problem. But my mate that sold, he sold to me his old bike to buy the 1098, which I bought exactly, well, probably more or less the same time as the 916. So I stretched myself financially, which wasn't great, and I'm still suffering from that now, which is why I'm thinking of selling the 916, mostly why I'm thinking of selling it. Yeah, I felt I'll get his bike on the road for a year, see how I get on with that, could call that greasy spoon, bikers and Joseph snacks. Yeah, that could be a place for bikers, but I don't think I've ever seen any there. So yeah, so I had this bike on the road for a bit, decided it wasn't for me, and sold it. And I got a really good price for it. I'm really, really chuffed that the owner found the bike that he wanted. I found the price that I wanted. It was really good. The deal was all good all round, for even for my mate, because I'd offered him to give him half of the profits that I made from selling the bike, and he said no. He was Charles and All Saints. Yeah, he was quite happy that the deal had gone exactly to plan, and that anything after him having sold it to me was my problem to deal with. That includes not being able to sell it, selling it for less than what I paid for it, having technical issues as an old bike. It was from 1990, that one. Yeah, so no, he was like, no mate, like, you've made money on it, and fair play, you know, happy days. So anyway, so that's what happened. So I knew my 916 was going to be off the road for a year, because I calculated the cost of the insurance to have the 916 on the road. It wasn't that bad really, but considering at that time I had 5 motorbikes, I was just like, you know, I can't really justify the cost of having these 5 bikes on the road, so the insurance and the MOTs and the taxes. And it would add miles to it, and then I had the issue that the belts had been done a year prior to me buying it or thereabouts, so I could probably have lived with that, but I was kind of like, well, you know, yeah, I just was like all in a predicament, and I am now, because like I said, I'm thinking about selling it, and I'm like, well, if I decide to keep it for a year just to experience the 916, because I've never owned or ridden, you know, I have ridden this one around a little bit, but not properly obviously. Yeah, so if I get it on the road for a year, that cost to me is the cost of the insurance, the cost of the MOT, the cost of the tax, right, and the cost of a service, which I would then be very inclined to pay Ducati to do. Right, because I'm really worried that prospective buyers will want to see servicing having been carried out by a Ducati garage rather than myself, because originally I was thinking, well, it doesn't matter, like, I'm going to keep this bike forever, and if you look at my Velocette that's like nearly 100 years old, like, service history and mileage just doesn't mean anything. It's just completely irrelevant. Like, the bike's nearly 100 years old, it's probably like 95 years old. Yeah, like, just don't even worry about that. So anyway, so originally I was kind of on the concept of, right, I'll buy it, and I have bought all the tools to change the belts myself on the Ducati, because it looks like a very simple job in my opinion. Obviously others might disagree, but anyway, it looks simple. The reason for getting it done at a Ducati dealership, I think, is not about avoiding the technical brain fuck of doing it, but I think it's service history, valuation of the value of the bike. Now look, I could turn back into Downton here, because we're back to Downton. That has crossed my mind to turn back and go through the New Forest, which is what I did on another ride. However, I'm not doing that, so no. But if I get back to Ringwood area and I haven't finished yakking, we will turn off into the New Forest. And although I've been through the forest with you guys before, a number of rides, we'll do it again. Anyway, right, back on topic. So yeah, so I bought all the tools. I was going to do all the belt changes myself, oils, fluids, you know, the basics of maintenance of owning your own motorcycle. Which, if you want a book to read, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, is 100% a recommendation from me to you, the listener, the viewer, the watcher. And I don't read books anymore. I've got no time to read, which is a little bit sad, but you know, whatever, it is how it is. But that book was given to me on one of my birthdays by my brother, and he's not into motorcycles at all, and he had just heard that it was a legendary book. And they're back into Hampshire now, from Wiltshire I presume, and that's nice. My sort of home county, I suppose. Well, I don't know when. Yeah, so Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, yeah, and it's I read it, even though I was, you know, obviously I'm can't say mildly and I can't say drastically dyslexic, but I'm in the middle ground of dyslexia, and so reading was difficult for me at that time. It's not, you know, as I don't know, whatever. So, but back then I had this thing where I had to start. If I started a book, I had to read it from the start to the finish, not in one go. But I just couldn't stop and pick up another book, and I couldn't stop and give up on reading, because I was like, that's why I'm not very good at reading. So my book reading development, if you like, was based on that. So I did read the book from start to finish, and yeah, it's really good. And I think even if you're not a motorcyclist, it's got some good morals to be taught, or whatever. I don't know really the quite word for it off the top of my head at the moment. I'm thinking of a slightly different word. There you go. But yeah, it's great. And in that, the guy is riding with someone else, and his mate's all like, just take it to the garage, get it done by the dealership, like what I'm talking about with this Ducati scenario. But the main dude in the book is more like, no, you need to understand and know and do the work yourself, and this, that and the other. And he, like, you know, kind of goes into that. Although, like I say, I don't really feel that, even though it says motorcycle maintenance in the title of the book, I don't feel that actually it's much of a focus within the book. It's more about this guy's relationship with his son, perhaps, and his, I would say, his mental health, because it kind of implies that he loses it when he's a university, I presume, rather than college, but he's a lecturer or a philosopher or whatever, right? Anyway, read the book, do whatever you want to do. That's that topic. I can't, yeah, I'm massively going off on a tangent here, and I'm going to tell you something else whilst I'm off on my tangent. I think, no, I don't know, I was going to say I'm going to turn into Fording Bridge and rip it on out the back of there somewhere for our ride, but no, let's just book it. And I should have gone down there, actually, that place there, that Wood Green or whatever it's called. That would have taken me to the forest nicely. So as you can see, I'm making this up as I go. Anyway, right, so we're done with Zen and the Art motorcycle, but we're on the topic of Ducati 916s. Now, the biggest question for me in this video, perhaps to the viewer, the YouTuber, the bigger world, should I, right, this is the question, should I sell my Ducati 916 and get a Ducati 1098? So that's what's going through my brain today. It was spurred on yesterday by the fact that I saw a 1098 for sale on Facebook Marketplace at what I thought was a very reasonable price. So my mate that's got his 1098, he paid around 8,000 for it, and his has got, I would say, potentially, it's about the same miles, I think, as this bike, might be slightly less. His is an S, this one isn't, so his is a better model, and his is original and this one isn't. This one's been repainted to look as though it's an R model, so it's like trying to make it out to be better than what it is, which I'm not a fan of. I've got to admit, I've had cars in the past, I had like an Audi or so, I had something where they whacked some sort of badge on it which made it supposedly the, you know, if you didn't know, yeah, you may have been fooled into thinking it was the higher spec version of that car, but it wasn't. It was the base model, you know, and like that kind of shit I'm just not interested in, you know, like people that buy fake clothing. So let's say you want to wear Versace and they buy fake Versace, I'm just like, what's the point? You know, either buy genuine and be proud that, or whatever the deal is, but you can wear that bit of clothing, or buy something that's a bit cheaper but that's equally as nice, you know, whatever. I'm not saying anything about branding, I'm just saying I don't really get on with the concept of buying fake, and then the same applies to motorcycles and cars. So I'm not overly keen that this mate he's resprayed it in this colours to make it an R, which must include the wheel colour, because I've seen the wheels are gold and I think they were black, but anyway. So yeah, not overly keen on that as a modification, and it does cry out to me, I'm going to stand up there for the bump, it does, like I say, I'm tempted to go in a Fording Bridge here, but like I say, I'm not going to bother. So anyway, it does scream out to me that the bike's been down the road, you know, like I just don't think anyone that's got an immaculate 1098 would get it resprayed just because he wants it to look like an R. Like, there is people out there that would do that. I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it would imply to me that he's scraped the bike in some way, shape or form. I don't think he's perhaps I did ask the question of the seller, is it ever been an insurance write-off, and they've said no, and I can check that with HPI, and they've got the paperwork anyway, so I would always check that with a bike of that kind of value. I don't think it's been crashed and bashed, but my suspicion is it's either been just sort of scraped along a wall accidentally, dropped, just literally stationary dropped, or still off down the road trying to get his knee down, being a hero, but maybe on a roundabout, you know, where he was practicing, and maybe he was only doing 20-30 mile an hour around a roundabout, whatever. I'm coming off here, sort of Ford Bridge. We're going to go on up to, I think it's God's Hill. I think this will make a nice entry into the forest for the elongation of the ride. So that thing of being repainted does slightly concern me, from the basis of, yeah, you know what, this could have been badly damaged and all the rest of it. But like I say, he's confirmed that it's not been involved in an insurance write-off, which is good, and like I say, I will verify that. He's also confirmed that none of the panels have got repairs to them. They haven't got any cracks that have then been re-welded, as they call it. It's like, I don't know, it's melted with a soldering iron or something. So that's kind of good. The only thing that concerns me on that is the basis of whether the panels are original panels or not. I would be happy with a respray, even though it's in the wrong colours, if the panels are original, and then that does mean that in the future at some point you could potentially respray it in the correct colours, should you so wish, and I guess no one would really know, or whatever. But if it's a case of the panels were damaged in some sort of accident, and then this person's decided to buy some cheap Chinese copy panels and get them painted, that would be a problem for me. I wouldn't be keen on that. So that's a slight thing. But like I say, the base question is about whether someone would... obviously you have to consider everything in this question. You can't just base it on the basis of, well, 916 is a classic and this one isn't, or this and that. The reason I say that is because my financial situation is a consideration. Because like I say, I'm struggling financially at the moment, so therefore that's, like I say, that's obviously massively influencing my desire to move on the 916 without ever having it on the road, which I do think that's a tragedy. Like, imagine that, you know, you tell people in the future, yeah, I owned a 916. Oh cool, yeah, well, never had it on the road. What the fuck, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's not great, is it? Right, we're dropping down to 30. I'm going to actually drop down to 4. So yeah, but like I say, I'm struggling financially, and the concept for me is that my bike will be up for sale for £11,000. I'm trying to go for 10,996, and I don't want to move on that. Like a lot of people have actually stated on their Sandy Balls there, look, that's a nice little holiday thing. Yeah, like a lot of people have actually stated on their adverts of Ducati's 916s. I don't know about now. When I was looking, which is, I've had it a year, I guess, so thereabouts. Yeah, they've stated no offers, and I would be doing the same. Even if I don't end up getting that money for it, I think I don't want to be just fucked around by people that constantly want something for nothing. And I would be tempted to write that on my advert, no offers, and like I say, I'd be tempted to go with £10,996. Thank you very much for waiting. I know it took ages, but I'm trying to avoid speeding, but there you go. Yeah, so that's a nice pub here, the Fighting Cocks. I see there's 2 bikes outside here, Bandit and some Kawasaki. Right, so yeah, the concept is I'd be getting about £11,000, 10.5 absolute minimum, but 11 is a fair price for the bike that I'm offering. If you know anything about, yeah, but if you saw my advert or whatever, it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not, but that's the fair price. So I'm going to get 11. The bike I'm looking to buy is up for 6-7, which I think is cheap, because like I say, Matey's was 8, but, well, his might have been over 8 actually, but like I say, his is the higher spec model. His is an S, and it's an original situation, not a fucked about with. But anyway, so the concept in my mind is that the 916 goes, let's just say, I don't know how to work out the maths, so if we say I don't know if he's going to reduce his price or not, or if he's going to, you know, potentially offer me what I want for mine, because I'm trying to get him to buy mine, and then obviously he'd have to chuck in a bit of extra cash. I always see a speed camera van up here, which is good, even though I'm face on to it, but anyway, good I'm not speeding. So he would have to chuck in some extra cash, because like I say, let's just say he's a 7, mine's 11, so what's that, £4,000. So I'm hoping that, yeah, I'm hoping that I get his for exactly what he wants for it, and I'm hoping he'll give me exactly what I want for mine, which gives me a little bit over the £4,000, which, like I say, I think is good for my financial situation. It's not amazing, I'm still going to be right up against it. So, but it does mean I've got £4,000 in the pocket, right? And what I don't have is, like, I feel that the 916 could be a bit of a burden, because I'd be so paranoid about mileage. I'd be worried that it's a real classic, a real iconic bike. To non-motorcyclists, they know the 916. Well, they know what it is to look at. So I think it might get me in that same issue I had with the Velocette, where I was concerned about originality and all that, but not from that level, because it's actually got non-original wheels, non-original screen, non-original cans. However, I've got all the original stuff with the bike. It's just the fact they've upgraded it to the slightly more modern looking version of that bike, so it's the next era of, you know, so it's the 998 wheels, although the 996 took those wheels as well in whatever years of production. So it's a slightly newer Ducati wheels, it's got a black screen that go with the black wheels, it looks fucking cool. I've got a YouTube video up of it anyway, if you wanted to see that, me walking around the bike. I might do another one soon as well with some better audio. Yeah, I think I'd be worried and paranoid about, because like I say, the original plan was just get the 916, right, keep it forever. It's an investment, it's a whatever, it's a passion, but it's an item that can go down to my children, that hopefully is worth more than what I paid for it in, I don't know, 10, 20 years, 30 years time, whatever it might be. Yeah, so I wasn't going to be worried about mileage. I was going to just take the attitude of, like, well, look at my Velocette, you know, like, no one really knows what the mileage of that is, and I don't think that's worthy cause of argument when a bike is that old. It's going to need to have had X amount of work done to the engine to keep it on the road, and So I was like, you know what, I can ride this without worrying about the mileage. I'll just do whatever I want to do. I'm not going to get mental, but I'm not, it's only got like 11,500 on it at the moment. I'm not going to worry about getting it up to 20,000, let's just say. Whereas if I was trying to sell it, I wouldn't want to be trying to sell a Ducati 916 with 20 to 30,000 miles on the clock, because yeah, well, there's lots of them out there with less miles, and people don't want it with that amount of miles. But like I say, if you're talking 20 to 30 years in the future, it wouldn't be a problem. So I was like in that mindset of, like, don't need to be obsessed about mileage, do the mileage I want to do. Don't need to be obsessed with taking it to genuine Ducati service dealership, because I can do all the servicing myself, because again, by the time it comes to be sold in the future, people hopefully will understand, oh, this bike's now, I don't know, 80 years old. So but that's all in the spectrum of, like I say, if I'm going to sell it right now, it just all changes everything, and that's why it's so much of a decision to make. And yeah, but I'm just kind of on the mindset that if I got this 1098, it's going to be obviously newer, can obviously be more powerful and quick. I think they're an unbelievable machine. I'm a little bit concerned it'd be beyond my abilities, but I even believe this MT-09 I'm riding now is beyond my abilities. I do cane it. I had quite a bit of fun before I started recording today, but I still know that it's a fast bike. So the 1098 I feel would fall into that category of being way too fast for me, potentially. But you can ride everything slow, you don't have to ride it fucking full throttle. Yes, so anyway, it'll be faster, more modern. It's got a lot more miles on it. It's got close to 20,000 miles on it, this one, this 1098. So so I'm not going to care about the mileage. It's already got high mileage in my opinion for a Ducati. You know, it's not high mileage by quite a lot of bike standards, but the one thing I noticed is that the 1098, when I was looking at them, they actually all had high mileage in comparison to the 916s. The 916s were like spread across from either basically next to nothing, like say like 5,000-6,000 miles. Some of them were, you know, 15,000. I mean, I was lucky to get mine at the sort of like the lower end of the spectrum, and there was quite a few at 20,000, but they're an older bike, way older than the 1098, and you know, so anyway, a lot of the 1098s were up there at the 20,000 mile sort of thing, and I think it's because they were a more usable bike. I think they weren't as the 916s, perhaps some of them had some bad reputations for being unreliable and this and that, and perhaps people thought they were a classic and left them in the garage. I'm not really sure about it or what created the situation, but the 1098 seems to have been used a lot more, which I personally think is, I guess, quite a good thing. Anyway, so I wouldn't be worried about mileage, because like I say, in my opinion it's already high mileage. I just have to take the attitude of I'm paying close to 7 for it. As long as I keep it for 7 years, if I then sell it for next to nothing, that's okay, because depreciation on vehicles is supposed to be £1,000 a year, but it's probably increased or changed. Those were figures that I was aware of years ago. But I wouldn't be too worried about that. I'd do all my own servicing, because again I'd probably just be like, fuck it, like I'm just, you know, well, I say I need to look into the cost of servicing actually, as in belt changes, and see whether that is actually astronomical or not. But yeah, so that would be the mindset of like alleviating the pressures of owning a classic 916, freeing up £4,000, and yet still owning a Ducati sports bike. So at the moment I don't have any sports bike in my lineup, even though I've had one previously, more or less all of my riding career. But yeah, but you know, I don't know, like originally my plan was just to sell the 916, right, and free up all of that cash. That was the original plan. I was not going to be tempted to buy another bike, but there's always temptation, isn't there, for any motorcyclist to buy another bike. Just get past this maze, it might be able to pull out. Is he still pulling out or not? Yeah, just about. Right, and I'm going to turn right here just so I know where I'm going. I could easily have gone left, that'd been interesting, give me a bit of a new direction, but I'm going to turn on this little hairpin thing, whatever it's called, and head for home or thereabouts. Yeah, I can pull up in one of these car parks probably, should I feel the need to continue talking. Hopefully I can finish this up and then you guys can end watching this video, because I'm not getting hardly any views, by the way. So this moto vlogging thing is supposed to be a piece of piss, or well, whatever, it's supposed to be easy, loads of people out there doing it, and they get millions of views and shit, and they do a lot of clickbait stuff where they create a title to the video that's very I would say misleading or whatever. I don't do that, and all the other things I don't do create a lack of interest in my videos. But you're getting to see some ponies today, some New Forest ponies, and that must be nice for anyone watching this that doesn't have to live in the forest. They're wonderful animals. I mean, they're left to run wild, but believe it or not, they're not, well, they are wild I suppose, but they're not wild in the sense that they're not owned. They're owned by people, and they're branded, so they've got the marks of the owners, and there's a whole world of stuff on that I'm not really privy to know, because I'm not a common lady to have commoners' rights to let them out in the forest, I think, and this and that. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, so the Ducati debacle scenario situation. Yes, so that's the temptation currently, is to trade up, well, not trade up, it's probably trade down, isn't it? But it's to get rid of the 916, get a 1098, right? And still have the sports bike dream, I suppose, but then still be able to afford it. That's the concept. I suppose that's the concept. I'd be worried and frustrated that I can't afford anything at the moment, and that's stopped me from being able to get the 916 on the road. And I suppose I'm looking at this as a way of being able to get the 1098 on the road, and somehow being able to afford that as another luxury part of the garage lineup. But maybe I shouldn't be thinking that. Maybe I should just get rid of the 916 or keep it. But you know, maybe I shouldn't be looking at something different as an alternative, because often you want what you want, and if you make, what should we call it, if you make like sort of like, I suppose, a compromise, then it's not really good, because you, in your mind, you'll be thinking, oh, didn't ever want that, you know, or whatever. There's some donkeys here as well, guys. Have a look at these donkeys, yeah. Something else to see, you know. Anyway, yeah, but yeah, financially, I don't know how to explain whether I think it's a good move or not, because like I say, what I'm actually thinking about is the fact that my K&S restoration Velocette that I'm restoring currently, right this minute, if you like, that has the potential to be fixed and sorted and rideable within a year's time from now. But I can almost put money on the fact that that isn't going to be the case. But let's just say it's done, right? So that bike, I'm then, more donkeys, that bike I'm then going to have on the road, because I would only have to pay for insurance. There'll be no MT, there'll be no tax. So I'm slightly concerned that if I stick with keeping a Ducati, and I'm in conversation with this matey, like I say, that owns this other Ducati, if I make that decision and just go, yeah, that's what I'm going to do, then I'm a little bit concerned that actually maybe I'd still be pushed into, oh, a bit of a bump there, keeping one of the bikes off the road from the point of view of costs, which doesn't really work for me. I think that really bikes need to be used, and although they, you know, you might not want to put massive mileage on a bike, I mean, they do need to be used. And I think that for me to keep a bike, that's actually going to be another topic of another video. We're going to discuss storage, of long-term storage and just winter storage of bikes. I'm not getting into it today. That's going to be another topic for me to talk about and get your opinions, advice, help, support, whatever on. But back to it. So yeah, I'm just saying that if I had to keep one of the bikes off the road for financial reasons, that I would be concerned that it's not a good choice for me or the bikes. So yeah, so that isn't necessarily an option. So yeah, so I need to make a decision. Well, actually, this chap has said to me, the first thing he said to me, I don't know what these mates are doing, some sort of expedition in the forest or whatever, probably orienteering, but anyway, right, ignore those people, avoid those rocks or whatever they were on the road. When I contacted this chap, I said to him, you know, something is something, and I said, I've got a Ducati 916. I said I would need to sell that before I could buy your bike. I said, but you might, as you're a Ducati owner, I said, you might be interested in buying my 916. To which he replied, I need to stop riding, not looking to any Part X, you know, sorry, you know, da-da-da. So I replied to him with some more questions. I wanted to ask a little bit about this respray thing. I'm just a little bit suspicious, you know, like, why is it being painted? Apparently in the advert it says the previous owner got it painted, but when he replied to me, he said that the person he bought it off, it was a previous owner before that had it repainted. So that slightly seems to be a bit of an inconsistency in the tale, and I never like that. It always arouses suspicion, but I get a feeling it's a genuine bike. I've got nothing to worry about, and he says it's got all the paperwork, and I can easily do a HPI check. However, that doesn't tell you that the bike hasn't been down the road, because the HPI would only be valid if they'd obviously gone through insurance to get it fixed, and chances are they just decided to get it repainted themselves. They probably came off the bike off their own accord, and therefore, you know, you're not going to claim on that. You're just going to say, yeah, whatever, get it sprayed, whatever. I don't know anything about all that. But anyway, so I got back to him asking about that element, and he started showing more interest in my 916. He was asking me how much I want for it, and I told him, and I also sent him a video link to my YouTube video of my 916. Yeah, but which is a bit strange because, like I say, he already told me straight out I need to stop riding. He didn't ask reasons why, but he needed to stop riding, and that was the reason why he won't RX. So yeah, so then you got to be thinking, well, he's either changed his mind on that. I've shown him a little bit of a video and he's gone, oh, well, I quite like the 916. He's had previously a 996, I think, maybe a 998, can't remember. I think 996 are the more likely option. Yeah, but you know, but he's starting to ask a few more questions, so we'll see. But should he not be able to do the idea of sort of swapping bikes and him chucking me some money, this idea of the 1098 is not really actually even an option. And I think really it probably shouldn't be an option at all. I think really I'm probably just chatting to my mate who's got a 1098 and he's like, oh my, yeah, that's a bloody bargain if it is all as it should be. However, he did say you do need to factor in the fact that it's been resprayed, and therefore you do need to take a knock on value. So I don't think I can really actually establish what it's worth, and perhaps I need to do my homework, look at some more 1098s, because I was looking obviously about a year ago and I haven't looked since. So potentially I need to look at more 1098s, and potentially I need to find out what a standard, because this is, like I say, this isn't the S or the R or anything, find out what a standard 1098 goes for with the sort of mileage he's got on it in an original condition. If, for example, that's selling for 7,000, right, got to be careful because of the horses and the cyclists here. If that's selling for 7,000, I don't necessarily feel that his bike is a bargain at 6-7. If they're still selling for around 8,000, then yeah, I think his bike is a nice bike for that money. But that's all, again, I guess, by the by. So, motorcyclist, LA mate. But that's the question for today, really. And that's the, well, I think most people watch my videos to see where I'm riding. I think they want to see, yeah, the location that I'm riding in. So they're probably not interested in so much in the question, the story, the engagement, the this, the that. But yeah, I just felt that today I wanted to go out for a ride. I wanted to record it. I don't always record, obviously. I wanted to record it. That's the current thing of today that's going on. The fact that I'm not working on the Velocette which I should be, and the fact that I'm thinking about this idea of the Ducati situation. So that's why I've been discussing that. And like I say, obviously it may not be of any interest to you whatsoever, but at that point you'd have stopped watching this video, like, I don't know how long it's even been, but you'd have probably stopped watching potentially half an hour ago. But yeah, I do need to actually figure out what the other moto vloggers are doing that I'm not, that's going to get me a few more views, because you know, I think that's the kind of point of it. I think it's like, well, I suppose some people create a YouTube account to become famous and to make it, and I've said this before on another previous ride, but try and look to my right, okay. The camera probably isn't going to show it, unfortunately, but it's a pub there, the Red Chute, and that has been previously, historically, whatever, it has been a bit of a biker pub. However, I've come across, like I say, that Churchill Arms I mentioned in Alderbury is, I would say, currently a far more biker friendly pub than what that Red Chute is, even though the Red Chute is in the forest and it's well known. But the Churchill Arms in Alderbury is got a bike night every Tuesday, which clashes with the pool bike night, which is a famous bike night down in my area because it's massive. It's a really big event. However, I don't really like it, and I much prefer the Churchill Arms. It's really like more intimate, smaller, less bikes, run by a pub. I prefer that. To support that pub by being a patron of it. Yeah, those kinds of things are why I like it. But anyway, so yeah, that was the Red Chute. Like I say, perhaps if you're local you might want to go in there. I've been in there, you know, I don't know if I should really give my opinion on it so much. It's a bit of a, I might be biased, being vegetarian and all, but the food, yeah, the food was okay. I didn't think it was that good personally, but it was okay. But that's probably, like I say, I'm a bit biased because my decision making is it's going to be influenced on the vegetarian options, and if they're not fantastic or whatever, I'm going to be a bit negative, where someone else might be chuffed to nuts with it. So yeah, but you know, frequent that pub if you like, and like I say, it's just, for a motorcyclist point of view, it's quite well known. When we get up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this ride when I take you to a place that I always just call Moyles Court, because there's a school there, Moyles Court, and it must be an area, but the actual place where I stop I think is potentially called something else, and I can't remember what it's called, but you know, you when you Google the New Forest car park that it is, even though I don't think it's got a sign as much, that's why I always call it Moyles Court, because I said when you see those other signposted car parks, it's obvious to call that area that, but like I say, this place might be called something else. But anyway, it's to my left now, like where I'm riding, it's to my left, okay, is where we're going to be kind of ending up in a minute. But up on the top there, it's nice, really nice walk, so if you're into walking, whether you've got dogs or whatever, that's a fantastic walk up there. And you can walk over to that pub we just went past, the Red Sheep. But the bit that's interesting is the fact that there's this, what I used to call it as a kid is I used to call it the Sand Hill, and my kids call it Sandy Hill, which I suppose is more or less the same, and I used to call it Sand Hill, and it is a massive hill that's all covered in sand, as if you're like at the beach. It's really nice fine sand, which I think it's like that because I think it was previously quarried, I would say. I think it's industrially being worked on to dig that side of the hill out to expose all of that sand. I mean, maybe not, maybe it's been weathered that way, but I doubt it. So yeah, so it's got this massive sand hill, which is really cool if you've got kids to bring them here. They will enjoy playing in the sand. So yeah, you probably are not going to get to see it on the video unless I happen to walk over it. Oh no, you might see it, yeah, over to my left just there, like I'm trying to turn my chest. Big sand hill, good fun. It has actually got a signpost, Rockford Common, there you go, Rockford Common, alright. That's your bit of info for today, Rockford Common. If you want to come have a look at this, and I'm going to end the video just here.